Section 27. Concrete, masonry, roofing, and residential construction. Concrete, masonry, roofing, and residential construction. References for this section include EM 385, TAC 1, TAC 1, Section 27, 29 CFR 1926.700, Subpart Q, UFGS 013526, latest edition, OSHA Fatal Facts, and NAVFAC Accident Abstracts. General requirements. The fall protection threshold height requirement is 6 feet for all work covered by this section, unless specified differently below, whether performed by government or contractor workforces to include residential or wood construction and scaffolding work. See Section 21. General requirements. Construction loads shall not be placed on a structure or portion of a structure unless the employer determines, based on information from a person who is qualified in structural design, that the structure or portion of the structure is capable of supporting the loads. Impalement hazards. Employees shall not be permitted to work above or in positions exposed to protruding reinforcing steel, fasteners, or other impalement hazards unless provisions have been made to control the hazard. Reinforcing steel caps provide protection against impalement hazards. Impalement hazard prevention. Reinforcing steel impalement hazard remedies are rebar guards, bending rebar over, wood planking, or restricting the area. A common mistake is to guard vertical rebar and forget about the horizontal rebar. Working under loads. No employee shall be permitted to work under concrete buckets, bundled material, or other suspended loads. Concrete and masonry construction equipment. Working under loads. This slide indicates some of the hazards associated with elevated concrete buckets. Riding on concrete buckets or other suspended loads shall be prohibited. Personal protective equipment. Based on hazard evaluations conducted by supervisors, employers shall identify and select, and each affected employee shall use personal protective equipment and safety equipment that will provide appropriate protection for the work being performed. All personal protective equipment, for example, for eyes, face, head and extremities, protective clothing, respiratory devices, and protective shields and barriers, shall be provided, used, and maintained in a sanitary and reliable condition whenever the hazard dictates. Concrete construction. This picture illustrates concrete finishing work being conducted. Post-tensioning operations. No employee, except those essential to the post-tensioning operations, shall be permitted to be behind jacks or end anchorages during post-tensioning operations. Signs and barriers shall be erected to limit employee access to the post-tensioning area during tensioning operations. This picture illustrates the placing of cables in a precast member for post-tensioning. Concrete construction equipment. Handles on bull floats used where they may contact energized electrical conductors shall be constructed of non-conductive material or insulated with a non-conductive sheath whose electrical and mechanical characteristics provide equivalent protection. This picture illustrates a remote control bull float used for finishing concrete. Concrete construction equipment. Powered and rotating concrete troweling machines that are manually guided shall be equipped with a control switch that will automatically shut off the power whenever the operator removes his or her hands from the equipment handles. These illustrate the concrete finishing phase. This is an example of a mishap that occurred during concrete pumping operations. A pump truck had its boom extended. The load on the front outrigger pads caused them to break through a ground cavity. The boom struck a pump man on the head and shoulders and resulted in 180 lost work days. Concrete pumping systems using discharge pipes shall be provided with pipe supports and designed for 100% overload. Concrete buckets equipped with hydraulic or pneumatically operated gates shall have positive safety latches or similar safety devices installed to prevent premature or accidental dumping. The buckets shall be designed to prevent material from accumulating on the top and sides of the bucket. This picture illustrates a close-up of the gate on a concrete bucket. Tremie Concrete. Sections of tremies and similar concrete conveyances shall be secured with wire rope or equivalent material in addition to the regular couplings or connections. Reinforcing steel. Structural and reinforcing steel for walls, piers, columns, and similar vertical structures shall be supported and or guyed to prevent overturning or collapse. Measures shall be taken to prevent unrolled wire mesh from recoiling. Concrete formwork. Formwork, shoring, and bracing shall be designed, fabricated, erected, supported, braced, and maintained so that it will safely support all the vertical and lateral loads that might be applied until such loads can be supported by the structure. Planning and design. The planning and design of formwork and shoring shall be in accordance with provisions of the American Concrete Institute Publication 347. The design of the shoring shall be prepared by a qualified person or designer, and the erection and removal plans for the formwork and shoring shall be submitted for review to the government designated authority. The erected shoring shall be inspected by an engineer qualified in structural design. The manufacturer's specifications for fabricated shoring systems shall be available at the job site during job planning and execution. This slide contains a picture of the installed formwork and an illustration or a design that the erectors would follow. Base supports. Base plates, shore heads, extension devices, or adjustment screws shall be in firm contact with the footing sill and the form material, and when necessary, shall be secured to them. Inspection. Shoring equipment shall be inspected prior to erection to determine that it is as specified in the shoring design. Any equipment found to be damaged shall not be used. Shoring inspection. Erected shoring equipment shall be inspected immediately prior to, during, and immediately after the placement of concrete. Any shoring equipment that is found to be damaged, displaced, or weakened shall be immediately reinforced or reshored. Reshoring. Reshoring shall be provided to safely support slabs and beams after stripping or where such members are subjected to superimposed loads due to construction. Tiered single post shores. Whenever single post shores are used in more than one tier, the layout shall be designed and inspected by a registered professional engineer qualified in structural design. Single post shores shall be vertically aligned and spliced to prevent misalignment. Adjustment of single post shores to raised formwork shall not be made after concrete is in place. Each post near the slab perimeter shall be secured during assembly and dismantling/reshoring to prevent the post from fallout. Tube and coupler shoring. The material used for the couplers shall be of a structural type such as drop forged steel, malleable iron, or structural grade aluminum. Gray cast iron shall not be used. No dissimilar metals shall be used together. Tubular-welded frame shoring. All locking devices on frames and braces shall be in good working order. Coupling pins shall align the frame or panel legs. Pivoted cross braces shall have their center pivot in place, and all components shall be in a condition similar to that of original manufacture. When checking the erected shoring frames with the shoring design, the spacing between towers and cross brace spacing shall not exceed that shown on the design, and all locking devices shall be closed. Vertical slip forms. Vertical slip forms shall be planned and designed by a registered professional engineer. All vertical lift forms shall be provided with scaffolding or work platforms completely encircling the area of placement. This drawing illustrates the various parts of a vertical slip form. It consists of a jacking rod, a jack, thin pipe around the jacking rod, a splash form to collect and contain any concrete as it is poured, the sheathing, a yoke assembly, a working platform for the personnel, wales, bracing for the wales, and a slight batter of the sheathing to allow the form to move easily. Removal of formwork. Forms and shores, except those on slab on grade and slip forms, shall not be removed until the individual responsible for forming and or shoring determines that the concrete has gained sufficient strength to support its weight and all superimposed loads. Precast concrete operations. Precast concrete operations shall be planned and designed by a registered professional engineer. Such plans and designs shall include detailed instructions and sketches indicating the prescribed method of erection and shall be submitted to the government designated authority for review. Precast concrete members shall be adequately supported to prevent overturning or collapse until permanent connections are complete. Lifting hardware shall be capable of supporting at least 5 times the maximum intended load applied or transmitted to the lifting device. No employee shall be permitted under precast concrete members being lifted or tilted into position except employees required for the erection of those members. Slab operations. Lift slab operations shall be planned and designed by a registered professional engineer. Such plans and designs shall include detailed instructions and sketches indicating the prescribed method of erection and shall be submitted to the government designated authority for review. This picture indicates a construction site where deficient temporary connections were made and other instabilities existed. They contributed to the sudden collapse of the building. Lift slab operations. Hydraulic jacks used in lift slab construction shall have a safety device that will cause the jacks to support the load in any position if the jack malfunctions. This slide shows the various components used around the slab and the steel beams during lift slab operations. If leveling is maintained by manual controls, such controls shall be located in a central location and attended by a competent person while lifting is in progress. In addition to meeting the definition in section 1926.32F, the competent person must be experienced in the lifting operation and with the lifting equipment being used. This picture shows a jack lifting unit used in lift slab operations. No employee except those essential to the jacking operation shall be permitted in the building structure while any jacking operation is taking place unless the building structure has been reinforced sufficiently to ensure its integrity during erection. Masonry construction. Prior to the beginning of the erection of any structural masonry, a masonry bracing plan shall be submitted to the government designated authority for review and acceptance. The plan will include the identification of the site and project, and will be signed and dated by the qualified person responsible for its preparation and modifications. The plan shall include the following information as applicable to the particular project. The sequence of erection activity developed in coordination with the controlling contractor that includes the following: material deliveries, material staging and storage, and coordination with other trades and construction activities. A description of the bracing selection and placement procedures, including the following: site preparation, restricted zone perimeters, supportive calculations, stability considerations requiring temporary bracing, terminus point, and connections. Activity hazard analysis in accordance with Section 1 of this manual, a list of the qualified persons and competent persons, and a description of the procedures that will be utilized in the event of rescue or emergency response. Masonry construction restricted zone. A restricted zone shall be established whenever a masonry wall is being constructed. The restricted zone is created to keep masons and other tradesmen away from a wall under construction when winds exceed critical velocities until the wall is completely tied into the rest of the structure. The restricted zone shall be established prior to the start of construction on the wall, be equal to the height of the wall to be constructed plus 4 feet, and shall run the entire length of the wall. Be established on the side of the wall that will be unscaffolded. Be restricted to entry by employees actively engaged in constructing the wall. No other employees shall be permitted to enter the zone. Shall remain in place until the wall is adequately supported to prevent overturning and to prevent collapse unless the height of the wall is over 8 feet, in which case the restricted zone shall remain in place until the requirements of Section 27.f.02 have been met. For multi-story structures, the restricted zone shall be determined by a qualified person. All masonry walls over 8 feet in height shall be adequately braced to prevent overturning and to prevent collapse unless the wall is adequately supported so that it will not overturn or collapse. The bracing shall remain in place until permanent supporting elements of the structure are in place. This illustration shows the restricted zone for an unsupported 8-foot wall, and on the other side, the restricted zone for an unsupported 4-foot wall. Similarly, for this illustration, showing a CMU wall and a scaffold on one side, the restricted zone is on the unscaffolded side. Roofing. Before work begins, a competent person for fall protection shall complete a daily inspection of each job site. The competent person for fall protection, designated by management, shall be capable of identifying existing predictable fall hazards and has the authority to take prompt corrective action to eliminate them. Hazards shall be eliminated by engineering methods, and if this cannot be accomplished, guarding to isolate the hazard from the exposed employees shall be implemented. In no case shall warnings or instructions be used as a substitute for elimination of hazards by engineering means or guarding. Holes and skylights. Roof openings and holes shall be protected in accordance with Section 24. Covers. All covers for openings shall be clearly marked with the word hole, cover, or danger roof opening, do not remove. Fall protection requirements. In the construction, maintenance, repair, and demolition of roofs, fall protection systems shall be provided which will prevent personnel from slipping and falling from the roof and prevent personnel on lower levels from being struck by falling objects in accordance with Section 21. Fall protection for steep sloped roofs. On all roofs greater than 16 feet in height, a hoisting device, stairways, or progressive platforms shall be furnished for supplying materials and equipment. This slide illustrates various fall protection anchorages typically used during roof work. Roof edge material handling and storage areas. Roofing materials and accessories that could be moved by wind, including metal roofing panels which are on the roof and unattached, shall be secured when wind speeds are greater than or anticipated to exceed 10 miles per hour. Safe access to roofs. Access to roofs and sections of roofs shall comply with sections 22 and 24. Material storage. Materials may not be stored within 6 feet of the roof edge unless guardrails are erected at the roof edge. Materials that are to be piled, stacked, or grouped shall be stable and self-supporting. This slide indicates a fatal accident that occurred during roof work. 2 employees were using a crawling board or chicken ladder. 2 employees were using a crawling board or chicken ladder type apparatus while they painted the roof of a barn. The crawling board or chicken ladder broke and both employees fell approximately 35 feet to the ground. 1 employee sustained multiple injuries and the other employee was killed. Residential construction. All wood used for residential construction shall meet applicable building codes and design criteria. Before manually raising framed walls that are 10 feet or more in height, temporary restraints such as cleats on the foundation or floor system or straps on the wall bottom plate shall be installed to prevent inadvertent horizontal sliding or uplift of the framed wall bottom plate. Trusses installed without a ridge beam or other horizontal structural connection shall be connected temporarily to each other and to a secured end gable by a minimum of 1 1x4 plank face nailed to every rafter on each slope of the truss. The number of planks shall be sufficient to protect against wind-related collapse of the truss rows. During construction, proper work platforms such as scaffolds and decks in accordance with Section 22 shall be used. Walking on plates, beams, joists, and other members more than 6 feet above the ground or floor is prohibited unless the workers meet the fall protection practices outlined in Section 21.